Sinister video game character. Playing on with it. Rhythms. There are 222 preset fixed rhythms in the CT-S1000V, and there's a further 21 piano accompaniment rhythms on top of that to take it to a total of 243 rhythms for you to choose from. Now, it needs to be pointed out that the rhythms cannot be programmed. You cannot program your own rhythms into this. You cannot modify existing rhythms, and you cannot mute any of the parts. For instance, if you wanted to mute a kick drum or a snare drum or hi-hat, tom-toms, whatever, you can't do that. You do, however, have some performance controls and some variations of the preset rhythms. And I also think it's important to remember that the whole idea or concept behind Casiotone is this kind of home keyboard with presets available with some flexibility with it. And this is very much the spiritual successor. Let me grab this from down here to something like this. This is an MT65 from 1984, and it's very similar concept. Everything's preset. You've got preset rhythms. You've got a fill-in button as well, and you've got some variations for the bass, chord, and arpeggio accompaniments. You do actually have a little mixing thing up here as well, so you can actually change the volume of some of it. And this is really an updated version of something like this, and that's why it's called a Casiotone, and they call it Casiotone rather, because it's an homage. It's a successor to the wonderful classic Casiotone from all those years ago. So let me put this back without dropping it. So let's move on. Let's have a listen to some of the rhythms available. And to do that, you go into, or rather you hit the rhythm button, and it'll take you into the rhythm menu. And you've got a number of ways of selecting the videos. You can use the jog wheel and use the plus and minus buttons. But also you have this category buttons, cat, plus and minus. And at the moment we're in the pops category. And if I hit the plus button, got 8-beat, 16-beat, rock, dance, jazz, traditional, Latin 1, Latin 2, World 1, World 2, country, ensemble, orchestra, ballad, and the piano rhythms. And you do have user rhythms, but these are not rhythms you can program yourself. These are rhythms you can import from. There are some keyboards, some Casio keyboards that can actually have their own, program their own rhythms, and I think it's a .ac7 file. And it's possible to import those AC7 files into the CT-S1000V to play them and put them into the user slots. But for now, let's go back to the beginning and let me give you an example of some of these rhythms. let's have a look at some of the performance features available to you with the rhythm section. I'm just going to show you rather the very first rhythm, which is Future Disco, which is quite a nice sound actually. You've got an intro. If you look at this button here, you've got a variation. If I hit this again, you'll see the little thing there go V1, V2. So you have two variations. You have a fill-in button. And this button, it says synchronize start because it hadn't started yet. So there's a way you can synchronize it and start only when you press a key, or the rhythms won't actually get going until you hit something on the keyboard. But once the rhythm's actually playing, that will turn into ending. And you also have the accompaniment button, which will bring in the accompaniment that's available to this particular rhythm. So if right now it's on variation number 1, so if I just hit the start button, it will play variation number 1. And also note on the screen you get a little kind of timer. It's not really a metronome, but it is, but it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So I hit start and the Future Disco pattern will commence. And I can now hit the variation button, and on the first beat of the next measure, it will then go into the second variation. So right now it's showing variation number 1. Let me hit it about now. And now we have the second variation, which is similar to the first one, but you hear there's a kind of a clap going on. I can hit it again, and on the next first beat of the next measure, it will go back to variation number 1. So that's pretty simple and self-explanatory. So suppose I want to have an intro, I can hit the intro button, and now it says intro, or I, and then it will go into variation number 1. If I hit the intro button again, it will actually do the intro and then go into variation number 2. And the intro is 4 measures. You can just about hear a little kind of a click track actually doing 4 measures of silence with the click, which you can barely hear, 4 measures of the intro, and then it will commence with the variation that you select. So I'm going to go for variation number 1. So when I now hit the start button, it will get 4 measures of silence, 4 measures of the intro, and then it will go into variation number 1. So you'll see this little thing change when it does so. So when I was doing the silence, now it commences with the intro part. Now it takes us into the main variation. What I can also show you now, I'll leave that running, but we have the fill-in button. And the fill-in button will trigger at any point within that 4-beat measure. And it will, if you don't go halfway through, it will only play half the fill-in. So if you play from the very beginning, it will play all of it. Let me show you. I'm going to do it from the first beat. That was the full fill-in measure. And now I'm going to go through about halfway through. So you can actually shake things up even more using the fill-in button and vary it. And then lastly, you have ending. And this one will start on the first beat of the next measure, and you get 3 measures of an ending. Let me count into that. 3, 4. And that's it, and then it will stop playing the rhythm. So pretty simple, but pretty effective, and works quite well, I think. As mentioned earlier, you cannot program, edit, or modify any of the rhythms in the S1000V, but you do have user slots. Now, you can find some custom rhythm files, or rhythm files that have been created with some other Casio model, which can program their own rhythms into those models, and they can export those And I think the file format is a .ac7 file. There's some places you can find these, and one of them, a good place, is the Casio Music Forums user group. And then all you do is simply put it onto one of those files onto a USB memory stick, flash drive, plug it into the S1000V, and then you can actually import those files into a user slot. And I've already done this with one of them. I downloaded the file from the Casio Music Forums just to sort of see how it worked. And I put it, let me go down this category thing, right here. So we're in the user rhythm. So this is actually the first user rhythm slot, number 244. And this one's called Axe Muse 2, asterisk. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it sounds it's sort of Asian Indian. And this is what it sounds like. This is not available, or it doesn't come with the S1000V. This is one that's been imported from elsewhere. Also note it's only got one variation. Let's have a fill in. As you can see in here, it is possible to bring in custom user rhythms, which you find from elsewhere, and import them into your S1000V into one of your user slots. And now we're going to take a look at the accompaniment section of the S1000V. And as we've discussed previously, the whole concept, the whole kind of spirit of Casiotone is the presets. And you can have some variations of them. And the accompaniment section of this is very, very similar. And I want to show you the MT65 again. Let me grab it. Because, as we've said, the MT65 has a whole bunch of preset rhythms. And it has some variations. You can variation of an arpeggio, chord, and bass. And you also have this thing called Casio chord. Let me put it under the camera, do a close-up. And you should be able to see it. I'll get it close up right there, Casio chord. And what I'm about to show you on the S1000V, let me put this back, is kind of like a modern day version, or very, very similar concept. So let's have a listen to it, or let's have a look at it. And to get into it, you press the accompaniment button. And we now have accompaniment. And what this does, this now splits the keyboard from here, I think this camera should be able to pick it up, right down to here, the same 11 keys that we could use for the vocal synthesis to control the syllables, or you can actually also use it to control vowels. You can see that chord is screen printed on the case, along with the individual chords that correspond to each of these keys. So this is the chord of E. We now have an E chord played, and it also shows you on the display the E chord. And I can go and do an A flat. As A flat is displayed. You can also play chords. Now, B diminished. Do some really strange stuff. That's also kind of a good thing as well. It actually tells you the chords you're playing, because I've not had musical training for a very long time. So I often don't know what chords I'm playing. I know the bass notes. I know the actual notes on the keyboard. I don't know what chords I'm playing. I just play things until they sound good. But that's actually kind of a handy little almost teaching tool. I could learn what chords I'm actually playing, which is a pretty handy thing to do. So let's see the chord section, or the accompaniment section, in action. And as I said, if we just play the keys, we just get a chord played. And also we can also play on the upper side of the keyboard. That's all I know. That's all I know. We have this split, but nothing else is happening. However, once you start the rhythm section, then you get the accompaniment section will kick in, and you just have to hit the key and it will play accompaniment to follow the rhythm. Let me show you. First of all, just get the rhythm going. And that's pretty much it. And now what I have to do is hit one of these keys. And it gives you an accompaniment. And as I said, we can play the chords. Looks kind of exotic chord to me is suspended second, whatever that is. Playing on with it.
That's all I know. That's all I know. That's all I know. That's all I know.
I think that's enough of that for the moment, but you can see what you can do with the accompaniment and the chord section. It's another little handy little thing you can do with it. What else am I going to show you? I'm going to show you the other things you can do. And you have this other thing. We've got the synchronized start. It does what it says, synchronize the start of the track. But if in accompaniment mode, when I hold synchronized start, hold it down, I now have synchronized stop. Am I missing for something? No, oh, that's right. If I hold down the accompaniment button, I get synchronized stop, but I also get synchronized start as well. Or I can have it alongside the synchronized stop. So what that means with the accompaniment is that nothing will play until I hit one of the keys, and it will also stop playing as soon as I release it. And it also could do something kind of strange with the rhythm section. So let me show you. If I just hit this key here, and now let go, it stops. So you can have a kind of a weird thing. As long as you're holding a key down, the rhythm and the drums will keep playing. But of course, you can go for that kind of stutter effect as well and pretend you're in some kind of 1980s pop song and be a bit of Michael Jackson or something, whatever he would do. But this is what you can do. You could play the chords. I'm sure you can find a use for it somewhere, but it's another fun little feature. But as I said, as long as you hold the chords down, a key down, it will keep playing.
That's all I know. That's all I know. That's all I know. That's all. That's all. That's all. That's all. That's all.
And just to finish off, I'm going to show you how you can split the keyboard, use the synchronized start to synchronize an arpeggiated bass line with the drums, the rhythm drums, and to bring a song in. This is actually a song I'm working on. So I'm going to, first of all, synchronize start. So we've got the synchronized start on, because that's now flashing. If I go to instrument and show you here, you see there's a lower section, this lower section of the keyboard has a synth-based 9 on it. And I've also engaged the arpeggiator. So we have a split keyboard, which means that this section, let me go back to the lyrics there. We got the lyrics, which is all about the Sinister video game character, which I'm using samples from that. And I'm also going to turn the filter down, because I'm going to go back to the rhythm section here. I'm going to bring in an intro. So we get the 4 bars intro, then we get the 4 bars we get 4 bars leading into the intro, then you get 4 bars of the intro, and then it will go into variation number 1. And I can use a combination of these performance controls to bring in the bass line by sweeping the filter in. It's a lot easier if I just simply demonstrate it. So here we go. So we've got the 4 measures leading into the intro. The intro will start about now. Now I'm going to sweep the filter. and that's the Rhythm and Accompaniment section in the S1000V. Though they are all presets and non-programmable, as you can see in here, with the performance controls and variations, you get a lot of flexibility to modify them during a performance. And I have to say as well that the drum sounds are really quite good with some very well chosen and put together drum kits. Overall, it's just another great feature that's fun and inspiring to use that you get with the S1000V. I'm going to go for 909.